Tyler, was Max really going to leave? I don't know. Was I okay with that? Definitely not. Why? Because I've fallen for him. But you hardly know him. Don't judge me. You don't even know his real name, his race, or why he's being hunted by Martians. His name is Max. He's an alien, and he's one of the good guys. Good answer. Thanks. I sighed and stopped in the middle of the empty road, staring down to the corner. It was evening, and I was walking around getting some fresh air. Max hadn't been at the school the past week, and I was seriously freaking out that he'd just gone and hadn't said goodbye. I hadn't received a note or anything saying he was laying low, and I wasn't sure what that meant. The street was cold and empty, but the sky was clear and stars were beginning to show. The horizon in front of me showed just a hint of orange glow above the roofs of houses, and the air smelt like night. Bugs were flying all around the street lamp lights, and I could hear a few crickets in the background. It was a nice night. A little kid like you shouldn't be wandering around the streets at night, growled a low, deep, almost distorted-like voice. I whirled around, and right there in the middle of the street, coming towards me, as if it was an ordinary thing, were two aliens. They were Martians, just like every one I'd seen before. Both of them were at least 2 feet taller than me, and much wider, too. But from the looks of their awkward state, I could probably outrun them. Little boys like you go missing on nights like these, gurgled the other. Their English was horrifying, and their voices weren't much better. I might have laughed if I wasn't so scared right now. So scared that the hairs on the back of my neck were tingling, and my palms were clammy. Well, it's a good thing I'm not a little boy then, I said, and then turned on my heels and pelted for a car parked across the road. I dived behind it just as the aliens fired a few blasts. I smelt burnt tires, but didn't dare look. I needed to think on my feet now, because the aliens could come over here any minute. Across from me was a fence lining a house. If I jumped that and went around the backyard, I could hop over a few more fences into the next street, then do the same over by a few blocks away before they could say Eskimo. The charging of futuristic guns sounded in my ears, and I knew that was my time to move. I leapt to my feet and ran for the fence, jumping over and running and jumping and running and jumping and running. I didn't stop until I was at least in the next sub of town. I stopped behind a big tree on the side of the road and looked around. There was no signs of any aliens, or that I was being followed, so I took a break to get my breath back. Then I pulled my phone and called Max's number. Ring, 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 ring. The person you are trying to call is unavailable. Shit, I hissed, hanging up and trying again. I rang 3 times before anyone picked up. Tyler, stop, was all Max got to say before I started screaming down the line. Pick up your freaking phone, bonehead, I'm being attacked by aliens right now. What? Max gasped. Where are you? Max. My phone buzzed on the coffee table in the living room of my strange, abandoned house. Apparently it was a holiday house for some people from the south, but so long as the occupants weren't here, it didn't matter to me who they were. My phone rang again. Ugh. Tyler, stop. Didn't he realize I'm trying to make things easier for the both of us? But the phone rang and rang, so I decided to pick it up. Tyler, stop. I went to tell him off, but my ears were nearly blasted off. Pick up your freaking phone, bonehead, I'm being attacked by aliens right now, he shouted. What? I gasped. Where are you? I don't know, Tyler mumbled. I could hear the fear in his voice now, and my chest tightened. I'd been trying to protect him by avoiding him, but in turn, I'd just put him in more danger. The Martians were never going to stop until they found me, and they had no morals, so they'd do whatever it took to get to me. How could I have been so blind? Think. Do you see any street signs? Are you inside somewhere? I urged, rubbing my temples. My skin was prickling, the alien wanting to be released. I couldn't change yet. I'm on Whaley Street, Tyler said, a little unsure. Okay, I'll be right there. Stay hidden, I told him, and hung up. I grabbed my weapon off the couch and flicked it open, and I didn't care who saw. I'd told Tyler to stay hidden, but only to make him feel better. The Martians would be able to smell him from a mile off. I had to hurry. I kicked open the front door of the house and stepped out into the front yard, then grabbed the stud in my ear and pressed down. Nobody messes with my boyfriend and gets away with it. Tyler. Stay hidden. Stay hidden. Okay, I can do that. I looked around for a good hiding spot. Come on, Tyler. Don't think of it as hiding for your life. Think of it as a game of hide and seek. You were always good at that, even if this time you're trying to save your life. There were several potential hiding spots around me. There was a plastic cubby house on the lawn of the house in front of me, an upside-down wheelbarrow in the yard on the left, a huge thick bush on the right, 2 cars on the left, and the tree behind me. But none of those would be good enough. They were too obvious, too easy. Then I saw the drain pipe on the side of the second house. It led in a straight line all the way to the top. I could climb it and go across the roof to the big brick chimney and hide inside that. I decided that was the best option and looked around me before racing over to it. I was good at climbing, and I got to the top easily, but by the time I was on the roof, I could hear something moving up the street. Good it, vard, dobra, the Martians grumbled. I had no idea what they were saying, but I had a good feeling I didn't want to find out. I quickly dashed across the rooftop and leapt at the chimney, then shimmied inside. A standard chimney has braces all inside it so that animals like possums can't come into your house while you're sleeping. But apparently the people of this house felt no need to have them. So, when I'd been hoping on the braces to hold myself up with, I was left to cling to the bricks until my hands and feet went numb. I didn't climb out, though. I couldn't. I could hear the aliens just outside. But my hands were beginning to ache and cramp. I knew when I was going to fall before I did. Max. I stopped at the north end of Whaley Street, right in the middle of the lip, looking straight down. There they were, 2 great fat Martians parading down it with their backs to me like they'd owned the joint. I laced 2 arrows and held my spear bow up, aiming at their heads. Then I pulled on the string and let them fly. They whizzed through the air, splitting apart halfway, and dove right into the center of both skulls. With a push of a button on the side of the bow, the arrowheads exploded, turning the Martians into goo. Tyler? I called out, running forward down the street. I froze mid-step and pricked my ears up. There was a sound, something, someone. There it was again. My head swiveled in the direction of house number 10. From the outside, it looked normal, calm and quiet, but there was something off about it. Then the front door burst open, and 4 Martians tumbled out, laughing about something. They saw me and stopped, fumbling for their weapons, but I was too fast and too angry. I dove at them, swinging my spear bow around. Smack! I stabbed the first one in the eye, right through the brain. Slice! I cut the second head off and didn't stop to watch it roll away. Crack! I jabbed the pointy end of my spear right into the heart of the third, breaking through ribs. The fourth didn't need a warning. He didn't have time to act either. I was elite. I was a commander of a federal squadron. None of them ever stood a chance. The 4th alien melted right off the end of my spear to the ground where it joined the others. There was silence on the street again. No more signs of movement. Tyler? I called out again, a little more panicked. That sound, it was coming from inside the house. I burst through the open door and looked around. To my right was a kitchen. To the left was a living room. I looked into the living room and saw black soot covering everything. There was a black lump in front of the fireplace, and I rushed over to it, dropping to my knees. Tyler looked at me with eyes that made my insides melt, just whites on the black. The sound was coming from him. He was whimpering. At first I thought he was just black from soot, but this close up I saw another color mixed with it. Red. Blood. Tyler was drenched in his own blood from head to foot. In some areas it was drying, in others it was fresh and still flowing. All my human emotions exploded in my brain so hard and strong I couldn't control them. The force of it made my whole body tremble from head to toe, which wasn't possible because I wasn't even in human form. What was happening to me? Max? Tyler choked, a trickle of blood gurgling off his tongue and out of his mouth. Tears began to flow down my cheeks before I even realized I was crying. Don't. Rest, I begged him, unable to form words. My nose began to tingle with tears. My throat felt tight. My stomach felt sick. No, he tried, but then his eyes closed and his head fell limp to the side. I screamed, tossing my head back and belting to the sky to release the tension built up inside me. I was going to rip out the hearts of every stinking Martian and watch them burn if it was the last thing I ever did. Gunner. I was surrounded by happy, laughing people, and I was the elephant in the room, sitting in the corner at the back of the restaurant. Why? I'd been down a lot lately, actually. Ever since Tyler nearly died at my house, I couldn't stop thinking about it, just standing there unable to help him, struck with fear. How could I be so pathetic? I thought about it every time I entered my room. It's gotten so bad, I can't even go in there anymore. I'd been sleeping in the spare room on the floor. Just seeing Tyler's face now was like a punch in the gut. What was wrong with me? Are you going to order? A voice asked me. I realized the waitress had been standing there for a while now, waiting for me. I sighed and grabbed one of the menus, but I really actually wasn't that hungry. I alone only came here because I didn't want to be home alone anymore. I mumbled, trying to focus on the menu, but the words were just blurring. Scoot, the waitress said, patting my shoulder. I shuffled over and she sat down beside me. Rough day? She asked, turning in the booth to face me. The cheesy Italian restaurant was dimly lit, with lots of red and yellow decorating everything. It wasn't very flattering, but this place was pretty popular for families. Something like that, I moped, staring at my hands as I put the menu down on the tabletop, pushing it away. I didn't really want to talk about this with a stranger. Gunner, come on, you're not acting like yourself, the girl said. I frowned and looked up at her, my jaw dropping. I gulped, nerves smacking me in the stomach like a wave crashing down on a surfer. It was her, the red-haired girl with glasses I'd been in love with for a while now. She looked pretty tonight. Her hair was loose and not so much pulled back. She wasn't wearing her glasses. She smiled at me shyly, tucking a lock behind her ear. You know me? I asked in disbelief. She gave me a little giggle that kind of made me melt inside. Well, it's hard not to notice someone like you, she mumbled. God, how could this happen? When did I get hit with luck? Right, I said, unsure of what to do. I'd never been nervous around a girl before. It was a new feeling. She laughed, and I caught a glimpse of her name tag for the first time. Sarah. Sarah still had to work, so while she was serving people, I sat in the booth and waited. Then, when her shift finished, she got her things and we left. I'd offered to walk her home. Girls really shouldn't walk home alone at night, I told her, unable to meet her gaze. But I could tell she was smiling. Oh? She asked, playing coy. Come on, Guns, get it together. What happened to Mr. Cool? Yeah, I said, mentally face-palming. Oh, God, here goes all my chances of love. So, Gunner, do you want to go out sometime? Sarah asked me. I nearly swallowed my own tongue and tripped over my own feet. What? I gasped at her, trying to get my breath back. She laughed sweetly, a sound like angels. I heard a rumor you liked me and thought you might want to do something, she explained. My jaw hit the floor. I'm going to kill Tyler. He was the only person I told about my feelings for Sarah. I'm going to kill him. Sure, I answered, finally coming back to reality. Sarah smiled and hooked her arm with mine, continuing up the road. Oh, man, I was on cloud 9. Max. There was not a single sound in the room, apart from my sobs. With my advanced alien ears, I could hear that Tyler's heart was no longer beating. He was officially dead, no matter how hard I tried not to admit it. My mind kept imagining his beating heart, but it didn't work. My vengeance would have to wait. Right now, there was something more important. I placed one arm under Tyler's knees and the other under his shoulders and lifted him. Then, with my Juperian strength and speed, I raced Tyler out of there. My ship was hidden way outside this town, somewhere in the outback, somewhere where no one would find it. It might have crashed, but it was still functional in almost every other way. I sped to the hatch door and pressed my hand against it. The computer scanned my print, and then the door clicked open. I raced inside to the back where the medic room was, placing Tyler down on one of the beds. Then I grabbed several tubes and cords and attached them to Tyler's flesh, mouth, nose, and one over his heart. Human technology couldn't compare to ours, so the idea to them of bringing someone back to life with these kinds of injuries, impossible. But not to us. I did a quick scan of Tyler's body to find most serious points of damage. I'd need to fix his injuries first, or the shock and pain of them would only kill him again when he woke up. A list formed on my screen from least to most serious. Broken ankle, broken right wrist, 6 broken ribs, a fractured pelvis, left ruptured kidney, 3 shattered vertebrae, internal bleeding, severed spinal cord, collapsed lung, cracked skull, broken neck, swelling and bleeding on the brain. Damn, Tyler, how do you get yourself into these things? I got to work working backwards up the list, correcting and ticking them off as the computer began to fix them. A screen on the wall opposite me showed me an X-ray image of Tyler's body. The red spots were the injuries, the green were functional, and the orange were the ones in the process of being fixed. I watched the screen as the system reversed Tyler's injuries, like someone had hit rewind. The swelling went down, the cracks stitched back together, and so did the spinal cord, seemingly all on their own. The bones jumped back into place and reassembled themselves, and all blood returned to its proper place. To top it off, the computer cleaned Tyler of the soot so that he just lay there, completely still on the bed, as if he was just sleeping. While this was going on, my timer ran out on my stud, and my human cloak took me back to human form. It had kind of a drop safety switch for this kind of thing. If a human doctor found Tyler now, it would be as if there was no cause of death. I looked down at Tyler's face as the computer retracted all of its tubes and cords except for 2, the one over his heart and the one attached to his nose. Would it be cruel for me to bring him back? Some people on this strange planet believe that once something is dead, it should stay dead. I don't care, I thought, and then hit the reanimation button on the control panel. Tyler's body jerked once and then went still. The monitor that had the image of his body changed to a close-up of his heart. It was blue, cold, and dead. Brain attainability, normal. Heart attainability, normal. Why wasn't he waking up? Tyler's body jolted again, and the computer injected a purple serum under Tyler's skin. The heart on the screen filled with purple as the liquid spread through his body. Another jolt. This one caused Tyler's head to roll sideways, limp. I fell to my knees. It was too late. There was only so much our medics could do. If a person was too far gone, there was no coming back. I'd lost Tyler forever. Then an idea hit me like a spark of hope. Idiot. Why hadn't I thought of it sooner? Tyler needed a special kind of power charge to activate the serum. I got up and leant over his body, a hand either side of his head. Geronimo, I thought, and then pressed my lips to his and kissed him. Marco. I stood in the hallway looking at the door to the apartment. I could hear the sound of the TV inside, but no voices. There were 2 places he could be, inside or with Max. Here goes nothing. I knocked on the door. A few seconds passed, and then I heard it click unlocked. A tall, handsome young man stood before me. He smiled as he looked me over. Hey, Marco, what's up? Neil Montgomery asked me, stepping back to let me in. Is Tyler here? I asked casually, stepping into the apartment and feeling comfortable enough. I'd been here a couple times before, and despite the fact that Neil was the principal of my high school, I didn't feel awkward around him. Actually, he just went for a walk. What can I do for you? Neil offered, going into the kitchen to get himself a fresh beer. I smiled, glad my back was to him. Good, I didn't want Tyler around. I mean, I did. He was my best friend in the whole world, but I didn't come here to see him. Not that Montgomery. Well, I was just wondering if he had the new volume yet. I sighed, faking disappointment. Neil nodded and popped the cap of his bottle with his shirt. He was wearing a Superman tee with faded blue jeans, but he looked cool. Well, Neil said, rubbing his chin in thought. I think he did say something about that. We can have a look. Then he walked past me towards Tyler's room. I smirked as I followed him. I liked the way he said we. I'm not gay. I'm really not. I just appreciate the company of a slightly older, very attractive man. That's all. We went into Tyler's room, and he looked through the pile while I went to Tyler's bed. I knew Tyler liked to keep his newest editions under his pillow so he could read them before he went to sleep. So that's where I looked. I don't see it. Do you? Neil asked me, distractedly going through the comic books. I sat down on the mattress and lifted both the pillows. Good. No sign. That meant we got to keep looking. No, I said, placing the pillows back down. Where I sat, I scanned the room, checking the corner of the book sticking out anywhere. Neil came back and sat on the bed beside me, drinking his beer. He offered me the bottle. Don't tell your parents. I'll get fired. He smirked, leaning back on his elbows. I took the bottle and pressed it to my lips to take a swig. It was an indirect kiss, and I couldn't help but feel a swirl in my stomach. That wasn't the alcohol. I leaned back like Neil, mimicking him, and handed back the beer. I could check the living room, Neil said in thought, glancing to the bedroom door. I sighed and laid back on the bed, staring at the roof. It's okay. I'll come back tomorrow when Tyler's here, I said, looking at the glow-in-the-dark stars Tyler had stuck on the roof. Neil looked at me, and my face felt hot under his gaze. You could just wait until he gets back and ask him, he smirked. I let my eyes fall to the side and looked at the good-looking man. He was smiling, and it made me smile back. I wanted to say something, tell him how I felt about him, but I couldn't get my mouth to move and form the words. It surprised me that Neil didn't say anything either. He just looked at me, and then he leaned forward over me, bringing his face down to mine, and before I could say, "Yes, please," he pressed his lips to mine. Tyler. I opened my eyes. There was a guy leaning over me, kissing me. I screwed my face up and shoved him away, sitting up and wiping my mouth. What the hell do you think you're doing? I barked, looking around me. I was in a strange place, like something out of my science fiction movies. It was so weird. On the wall to my right was a huge screen with a moving, beating red heart. Tyler, you died. I brought you back, the guy said to me, frowning and coming closer. I jumped off the cot so that it was between us and put my hands up. Don't come near me, you freak, I growled. Who did this guy think he was, kissing me, acting like he knows me? I've never seen him before in my life.